Good evening. Welcome to the Ojai City Council and the Ojai Redevelopment Agency Successor Agency meeting of February the 11th. Roll call.
Councilmember Blatz.
Here.
Councilmember Clapp. Present. Councilmember Lara.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith. Here. Mayor Strobel.
Present. Okay, I'm taking just a moment to organize here. Okay, if Councilmember Lara would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
You may all rise. Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a couple of presentations this evening. The first presentation is the recognition of the firefighters for muscular dystrophy fundraising. Is Adia Reggie here? Okay. Our second presentation is the Ojai Valley Defense Fund. Is Peter Cantel here? Cantle. Here.
Good evening.
Aye.
Am I on the mic? There we are. My name is Peter Cantle. I live on Gridley Road, and I'm here as the president of the Ojai Valley Defense Fund. We're glad to see you all. There are many board members and supporters in the audience as well. Those that know about us know we're a 501c3 organization. We've been formed up for about 4 years, and we formed really to ask and hopefully answer that question about what we want this valley to look like in the next 100, maybe even 200 years. And, do we want it to look like our neighbors to the south with big box stores, massive freeways running through, large-scale development, that sort of thing, or do we want to try to preserve a little piece of California, much as we all enjoy today? And that's really kind of the fundamental underpinnings of what the Defense Fund is all about. So every decade since the 50s or the 60s, there have been one or two really major threats. Everybody probably remembers Weldon Canyon. That was the last really major one. Since then, the economy has really helped us out. We haven't had to deal with too much. But in the meantime, we're kind of asking the question with the Defense Fund of, instead of dodging bullets, let's make it less attractive to shoot the bullet in the first place. So we're developing a $1 million fund, and we're somewhere around $750,000 to $800,000 now in cash, contributions, and pledges. So we would like to kind of acknowledge that by handing out to all the council members this cool little mug with a decal in it.
Thank you.
How much is this worth?
Yeah, for those of you that have to file the Form 700, that's worth probably $3.50. I don't know if that's de minimis, but it's probably not the worst thing you're going to have to claim on your Form 700. We recognize that many of the council members are supporters. We appreciate that. We'd like to get the last council member who's not to be a supporter someday. Simply acknowledge that there's a lot of hard work that goes into this. We're all volunteers. Like you, we all care deeply about the valley and the way it wants to look in the future. So we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much. And please be sure to visit our website, www.ovdf.org. Thanks so much.
Here we go.
Madam Mayor, can I make an addition? May I make an addition to what Peter said?
Yes.
In fact, there has been a major threat, Peter. It was these gravel trucks and the gravel mines up on Highway 33. And we were very successful in fighting that. And there was a group called Stop the Trucks, which many of you donated to, and we went to court. And that in my opinion, and I was on that group, was a very major threat to our valley. So I'm just adding that as a threat that, once again, we have been able to overcome.
Okay. Next on our agenda is commission reports, and this is time set aside for any commission chair or representative of our commissions or our board to make a brief statement about activities to the council. Do we have anyone to speak? Yes, we do. We have our Building Appeals Board.
Well, just take a second. Yeah, Bill Wyrick, Chair of the Buildings Appeal Board. I just wanted to inform the council that we had, I think, a very successful workshop talking about the second unit compliance program revisions, or some proposed ones. Talked a lot of broad concepts, had great support from City Manager Clark in organizing that. And we just set up a joint workshop between the chairman, it was delegated to the chairman of the Planning Commission and myself to come up with a draft document to then circulate among our two bodies and hopefully come up with a joint recommendation to you. We're going to be meeting Friday from 1 to 3 in the conference room, again with the support of City Manager Clark, and we are pushing to get that document to you as soon as we can. So I just want to let you know that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commission chairs? Okay, now we're going to go to our public communications. And this is the time set aside for members of the public to address the city council. On items other than agendized items, limit your comments to 3 minutes. And I'm going to do something a little different because we've had a request that there might be a need for an interpreter for some of our speakers, so I'm going to ask if there's anyone in the audience that needs an interpreter. Of course, if they need an interpreter, how am I going to?
Mayor, if I may just repeat that in Spanish.
Thank
or
you.
if even more, if our interpreter might, I don't know what would be appropriate, so, or I'll just do it. Si hay gente sentada, si quiere hablar de un tema que está en el horario, o si no está en el horario, ahorita hay un intérprete donde él puede traducir para que podamos entender su posición o sus temas o sus no sé, argumentos o razones de que quiera, si quiere puede pasar ahorita y hablar sobre esos temas.
Do you see anyone?
There was somebody over here, right here.
Si quieres. Sí, pásale, por favor. Si nomás puedes repetir, ahorita repetir tu
And our
nombre.
interpreter is here?
Actually, very brave.
Mi nombre.
¿Mi nombre?
Sí, su nombre.
Luis.
Luis.
Ajá. Mi nombre es Luis Arriaga.
Luis Arejada.
Arriaga.
Ariada.
Arriaga con doble R.
Arriada.
Ok.
¿Y su dirección?
Número 20 La Cruz, en Oakview.
20 La Crosse in Oakview.
Ok. La razón que estamos aquí.
The reason I'm here.
Could I ask the translator to speak into the microphone so we can hear a little better?
Con más compañeros jardineros.
With other co-workers, gardeners.
La razón es que hay una ley que no nos están permitiendo que usemos el blower de gas.
And there's a law that's not letting us use the gas blowers.
Pues queremos saber si la ciudad de la ciudad de Ojai tratan de vamos a tratar de hablar de eso.
We would like for the city of Ojai to let us talk about this.
Porque la razón es que no, pues es una herramienta muy importante para nosotros trabajar con esa herramienta.
This is a tool that's very important to us.
Según la ley que está, que puede usar uno electric blower, pero electric blower no trabaja rápido ni fuerte para las hojas.
The law states that we can use an electric blower, but the electric blower is not as effective in the job and does not work as well, and it takes longer to complete the job.
Y también según hay que no se puede usar mucho como en la ciudad de Ojai, nada más como en lo residencial, comercial, no residencial, mucho.
Okay, so, que se puede usar en el...
Como en lo comercial.
Okay, sí lo puede usar en
Ajá,
comercial.
pero no en lo residencial.
So it's saying that they can use it in the commercial areas, but not in the residential areas.
Y la razón es porque la policía ya paró a un amigo, compañero de nosotros, trabajador, y ya lo paró en 2 ocasiones.
Okay, the reason we're here is because the police has stopped one of my coworkers in a residential area.
Ajá. Y mi amigo vino a la ciudad, aquí a la ciudad de aquí, de la oficina, y le dijeron que un policía no tenía por qué detenerlo porque estaba haciendo su trabajo y menos darle un ticket.
¿Le detenió?
Lo paró, que no podía usar
Okay.
el blower.
So my coworker came here to the city office.
Por segunda vez lo ha detenido un policía
For the second time, a police officer has given him a ticket
porque está esa ley.
because of the law.
Entonces hubo una grande conversación entre la oficina que estaba aquí de la ciudad y mi amigo. Entonces él tuvo que ir allá con el sheriff.
Okay, so
Diciéndoles-
there was a large discussion
Ah.
regarding this, and he ended up having to go see the sheriff.
Y el sheriff le dijo que ellos tenían que responder a la llamada porque estaban llamando,
Okay, so the sheriff said that they had to go out because somebody had called to complain.
que porque eso era, entonces tenían que él venir a hablar con los de la ciudad de Ojai.
So
porque
he
habían
had to
sido los que habían
come,
puesto la ley.
they needed to come and speak with the city of Ojai about this law.
Entonces, pues él ya no pudo trabajar ese día
So
y
he-
anda con miedo.
Okay, so he couldn't work this day, and now he's scared.
Y lo que nos estamos juntando los jardineros, ahorita no ha llegado nadie, nada más el señor fuimos muchos
So
los que ya nos
we're all
juntamos.
getting together. We're not all here today, just one other coworker.
Hay unas herramientas nuevas que están sacando, blowers y todo eso que trae como a silenciador que hace menos ruido. Estamos dispuestos a que si nos dejan trabajar, pero que sea el de gas, a comprar ese tipo de herramienta nuevo que está saliendo, pero que a ver si pueden eliminar la ley que tienen, que nos dejen trabajar.
There is a new type of blower that's coming out. It is still gas powered, but it has some sort of like a silencer on it. So they're asking if there is the ability to please change this law so that they could use the gas blowers with the silencers.
Porque esto es por el bien de la ciudad, que se mantenga más limpia.
And it's to help the city to keep the city clean.
Es todo lo que tenía que decir.
That's all I had to say.
Ask him to stay for just a moment.
Un momento.
Okay. Mr. Clark, do you have any comments on this?
Yes. First of all, one of the things that we've done recently is translate our blower ordinance into Spanish so that it's more accessible to those who don't speak English. And one of the programs that has been suggested as part of our work program for the future is to actually review the blower ordinance. At least 2 council members have asked that be considered. Our thought was that as part of that process, we would have workshops with the gardeners and landscapers, including interpreters, so that we can have good communication and have a dialogue about both the problems experienced by neighbors as a result of blowers and potential solutions. So all of that information is accessible to the council when we actually get to looking at our ordinance.
Okay. And would you convey to the speaker that we can't take action on his comments this evening, but that it is anticipated that we will review the ordinance, we will have a workshop, we will invite the people that would like to speak in support of the new gas leaf blowers with silencers. We will invite them to speak, and we will have an interpreter present.
Okay. Dicen que no pueden hacer algo hoy para arreglar esa ley, pero sí tienen planes para arreglarlo, sí tienen planes para tener unos juntos y tienen planes de invitar a todos los jardineros, hacer una invitación para que todos pues, se puedan juntar a ver si pueden arreglar esa cosa o si pueden cambiar la ley para incluir los silencers.
Está bien. Ojalá que sea rápido porque ya hay muchos compañeros que andan muy asustados.
Okay.
Ya nomás miran la patrulla y ya no hay a dónde meterse.
He says thank you, and hopefully it would happen quickly because a lot of people are scared.
Okay. And one last question. Could we somehow make sure that we have a list of all the people interested? Okay, we do have a list of everyone interested.
Van a tomar una
Okay.
lista de todos los que quieren
And so
atender a
if
esta
you would sign this and give us some way to contact you, we'll let you know when the workshop is
teléfono, algo
scheduled.
para que te pueden avisar cuando va a haber la junta.
Yeah.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, somehow I think by the time we get to the issue of a new ordinance and a workshop and then public hearings and all that kind of thing, this is going to be a lengthy ordeal. I would request that this come back on a more recent agenda for the purpose of discussing whether or not we want to abate the enforcement of the current code, because I know that there's a lot of people using the blowers, and not everybody is getting a ticket. And I think that it's complaint-based, and I really think that if we're going to consider an amendment to a code, that we bring it back before us and on an emergency basis, see if we want to put a moratorium on enforcing the code so that these landscapers can at least go to work and not feel as though they're going to be arrested or receive a citation.
Okay, and could the interpreter relate, I lost our speaker. Okay. And could you relate what Councilmember Blatz just stated, which is we will put it on an agenda for discussion to see if the council would approve a moratorium on the enforcement of the leaf blowers?
Yeah.
And we'll do that by our next meeting, which is February 25th.
Próxima junta, el 25th, el 25 de febrero, lo van a poner en los minutos para que se los puedan atender ese día. El 25 de febrero. Okay?
And if everyone that needs an interpreter would let us know, we'll make sure that we have an interpreter here on the council meeting agenda for the 25th, and we'll discuss this.
Si todos que llegan nomás tienen que decir que ocupan a intérprete.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, on another note, Mr. Clark, are we posting our agendas in Spanish? Okay. I really think we should, and I think there should be a comment that if anybody wishes to speak to the council, to let the city know that they're going to need if they're going to need an interpreter, so that can be made arrangements for prior to them coming to the meeting. And that should be both done when we post in hard copy and then also on the website.
Now, we do have, but it's in English, we do have a section under our notes on the agendas that invite people to let us know if they need an interpreter, but it's in English. So that may not be that helpful. And do we also want to put on a future agenda the possibility of posting our agendas in English and Spanish?
Is that a requirement that we have to discuss that? Can't we just do it?
Yeah, I think we can administratively go ahead and do that.
Okay. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak and who would need an interpreter? Of course, if you need an interpreter, how are you going to know what I do? Councilmember
Si hay
Laura?
alguien más que guste hablar ahorita que está el intérprete aquí, si puede pasar. Gracias.
Anyone? Okay, then it looks like we can release our interpreter. All right, and for the next part of public comment, and I frankly do not recall whether or not I reminded you that yes, I did. I did remind you. It looks like we have many people here tonight to speak on the cell tower. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to limit the time that we will have public comment to 20 minutes. Quiet. I am going to limit the time because this is an unagendized item.
It's an unscheduled item. There is no item on the cell tower except the hiring of an attorney. This is unscheduled on the agenda. Show me on the agenda where we're doing anything but item, what is it? Item 2, where we are hiring a special attorney who will be paid quite a lot of money by the city to basically represent us against AT&T. I hope you all read that, because there is no conflict between the city and most of your interest. Okay, but right now, you have all come to talk on unscheduled items. We're happy to listen, but I don't know what else you want us to do besides what we are doing.
Okay.
So, period.
Madam Mayor, rather than limiting the time allotted for the public to speak, why don't we just ask that people that have spoken before that are going to say the same thing, maybe wait to see if somebody else says what they intend to say. We've gotten the message loud and clear from the last meeting. I don't want to make the public feel as though we don't want to hear it, but if we've heard it before, we probably don't need to hear it again. But I think we should not limit it to the 15 or 20 minutes or a half hour, 45 minutes. If somebody speaks and they say exactly the same thing that you're apt to say, then maybe you don't need to get up again if you've already spoken to us. That would be my preference.
No, I really think we should limit it. We are doing everything we can. If someone wants to speak who has an idea of what else we can do.
Quiet in the audience, please. Order and decorum.
Madam Mayor, oops, I'm sorry. Is Mayor Pro Tem done? Madam Mayor, in that case, I would ask that everybody and the members of the public be allowed to speak for 3 minutes each.
Quiet.
Madam Mayor, I think it is important to let the public speak. I know we've heard it before, but it's an important matter, and I'd agree with Councilmember Blatz.
Okay, we have been working on this. I don't know if everybody here even knows we're hiring a lawyer later tonight. I don't know if you read the minutes, the agenda. I would love to hear ideas of what else we can do. But there is nothing but collaboration between the city and the public on this issue. If you have ideas what else we can do, that would be great. But there is absolutely unless some of you are here for the cell tower, there is absolutely what shall I say, anything but support. That's my point.
Councilmember Clapp, you are the tiebreaker.
I have a suggestion. How about instead of 3 minutes, we limit it to 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes? That would help cut down the time, and we could still hear from everyone as a compromise.
Okay, so could we compromise in 2 minutes?
That's fine.
But
Okay.
in addition, I think it is important to recognize that we are doing everything. I agree with Councilwoman Smith that we are doing everything we can to remedy the situation, and to please, it would be very helpful to limit your below 2 minutes if you possibly can.
Can you take non-cell?
No comments from the audience, please.
I have a point of privilege. I have an item I want to discuss that's not about the cell tower. I'd like to have 3 minutes.
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Sweet.
Okay, so we've decided that we're going to hear all of the public speakers for 2 minutes. And I'm going to reiterate, and I'm probably going to be unhappy with myself when I say this. There is an item on the agenda, which is the discussion item number 2, which is a legal services agreement with Telecom Law Firm, and that is about the cell tower. So, just so that you know that there is an agenda item. Okay, and I'm going to do one other change. I'm just having such fun up here. We have 3 speakers that are not here about the cell tower. I'm going to hear them first. Deborah Moe?
Good evening. Deborah Moe, downtown Ojai. I'm here on a safety issue.
3 minutes.
The building that is next to the skate park, which everybody is familiar with, that has 2 broken windows. The other night, I was walking by, it was 9:07. Teenagers were helping other teenagers sideways through the window. And I stopped and said, "This is illegal. You guys can't be doing that. It's breaking and entering." And I got the bird in words. And so I didn't have my cell phone because I was walking. And by the time I came back by, they were gone. But I've also seen kids scooting into the gate, and there's a boat back in that yard. And it's always at night, so I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the city, because it is a safety factor, and that blighted building, I don't know what we're doing about that, but there's broken windows. Now, there's no jagged glass, and there is enough room to get through it sideways. So I wanted to bring that to the attention. Also, a water issue. You know, I just hear on World News tonight, you know, water at night because of the evaporation issue. And I come here to the city the other day, and the back lawn is in the middle of the day just watering, flooding, whatever. And I want to know, or I want to see about what's happening with cutting back on water. It's raining, you drive around, you see some of the businesses, some of the churches, it's raining, and the sprinklers are on. Now, I realize they're on a timer, and they're on the same timer all year long. It seems kind of silly when we're in a drought situation. So, I was just listening to Channel 3 News, and in Santa Barbara, they're now starting to have repercussions. So I don't know what can be done, and that's all I have. Thank you very much. Oh, I want to thank Troy Becker and for not dropping the ball on the recycle center. And I understand that it from Sherry? Kathleen, yeah, something. Anyway, said that maybe Help of Ojai out at West Campus might pick this up. And I think it would be good for everybody. But, there's people.
Thank you, Mo. Finish up.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor. We have a blighted building ordinance, and I think we need to see what's going on here.
Okay, our second non-cell tower speaker is Patty I cannot pronounce your last. Thank you.
Pangling.
Pagling.
Thank
Patty
you.
Pagling. Yeah, thank you. I would like to ask the City Council to support a resolution against the use, sales, and purchase of anticoagulant rodenticides. I think I've sent the information to all of the City Council members and the mayor, and I hope you've had a chance to look at it. It's really an important issue. Rodenticides kill not only rodents, the targeted species, but also non-targeted species as well. And our wildlife is really suffering. Dogs have died because of it, and children also have died. There are statistics that are pretty shocking. And so what we can do along with Malibu, Calabasas, and Moore Park, we can have a resolution here in Ojai to protect the people and the wildlife. Let's see, some of the answers, the alternatives, installing owl boxes, that's a very effective alternative. It's not good to install owl boxes when we're poisoning the rodents, though, because a lot of the raptors are dying because of the poisoning. And when a rodent is poisoned, it's very easy for any of the prey birds to get it, and it's it's been let's see. A rodent dying with rodenticide poisoning is lethargic and tempting, easy prey. Eating the poisoned rodents causes their consumers to bleed uncontrollably internally and die slow and agonizing deaths. The weakened immune system produces extreme emaciation, dehydration, and mange that can take weeks to kill the animal. And we all probably are aware of the problem locally about the coyotes that we've seen that are very weakened and have mange. So I'm asking you to go ahead and let's have a resolution to protect our wildlife. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Please no clapping.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to ask staff if the city of Ojai uses rodenticides.
I'll have to check.
Okay. If we do, I'd like to do whatever we need to do from our end on council to bring it forward to ban the use of them in the city.
I second that. In fact, I would like it to be placed on an agenda item, and out of that agenda item, then we would either have a resolution or an ordinance. All right? Thank you, Patty.
And just, Patty, just to let you know, I have received your email with the proposed resolution, I believe it was, and I believe I responded to you to set up a time to meet later, so, but I have not read the information yet, but I will.
Madam Mayor, just briefly, this is an item that's been on the discussion of the Ventura County Organization of Governments, which I sit on. And in our next meeting, we're going to bring it up again. But it's a serious problem, and from our organization's standpoint on VCOG, we're very seriously considering from a countywide basis to recommend that the cities have a ban.
Okay. The next speaker is Sue Williamson, and this is for transition to organics.
Hi, Sue Williamson, Terramina Lane, and I'm here to support Patty. I wanted to let you know that a 5-year study in the Santa Monica Mountains found that 83% of the coyotes were exposed to rodenticides. The bobcats, since 1996, data from studies in Los Angeles, 95% of the bobcats tested have been exposed to rodenticides. Mountain lions, of 104 mountain lions tested in California, 82 contained rodenticides, with a majority containing more than one kind, 78%. 10 Santa Monica mountain area mountain lions have been tested by the National Park Service, and 9 showed exposure. 14 out of 14 mountain lions tested by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife the last year had rodenticides. 79% of the fishers, that's a weasel-type family, they have been exposed to rodenticides of 58 that were studied. And raptors, the Department of Fish and Wildlife study stated as of 2010, 92% of raptors collected in San Diego County and 79% in the Central Valley contain anticoagulant rodenticides. So you get some kind of picture how really serious this is. It's really bad. So, and as a coordinator of the Ojai Wildlife League, I just want to let you know I'd really love to work with you, and so would Patty, to come up with a great resolution, and I'm really appreciative of your support. And I also wanted to say on another note, as a member of the Terramina community, and you all went through that little hearing, I just wanted to comment that since I put my house in 2007, I think, I have been appalled at how the fees have gone up for putting in a house. And I just like to suggest that the Planning Commission or whoever it is, perhaps if you really want some affordable housing in Ojai, you might consider lowering your fees for affordable housing, because I just couldn't believe how they were 100% more than what I paid just 5, 10, 6 years ago. So that's another thought. And then on a final note, I'd like to thank you for your wonderful electrical outlet-free electricity for the plug-in cars. And I'd love to see more of those in the city if you could afford it, because they're starting to get filled up. More people are buying electric cars. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have some speaker cards, and it doesn't indicate, well, some of them do. I'm going to go through them, and if you would like to speak on the cell tower, just raise your hand. If your comments do not have anything to do with the cell tower and they're not anything on the agenda, go ahead and come up and speak. But I'm going to hold the cell tower speakers to last. Okay, I can see. Let me go ahead and find Deborah. Deborah Pendry.
Thank you, Mayor Strobel, council members. Deborah Pendry, 309 Riverside Road, representing the Ojai Valley Green Coalition. We wanted to share with you the results of our 6th annual e-waste collection event we had on Saturday, January 11th. We do that in partnership with the Ojai Community Bank and the Ojai Valley Directory. So we had about 250 cars come through, a little lighter this year. We usually have 300, but we still collected over 22,000 pounds of e-waste. And we collected our usual 1,000 pounds of household batteries, and we also at this annual event take ink and toner cartridges, old holiday lights, media storage. We still see VHS tapes come through and floppy disks, and so there is a way to recycle those, so we're asking people that do not put those in your trash bin. We'll be back on Saturday, January 10th for 2015. So keep all of your stuff and make sure you recycle it appropriately. Next up for us for our community service event will be our 3rd annual seed swap, seed and plant exchange, and that is Saturday, February 22nd, 1 to 4 p.m. at the Chaparral Auditorium. This is an opportunity to come together as a community, share our wisdom on gardening, share our seeds. It's not required to have seeds to share to come to this. It's always has about 100 people, and it's just buzzing with energy. We have people come and talk about beneficial bugs, and we invite other organizations to share about things all to do with gardening. So this is a great event, great opportunity to get together and become more resilient as a community. And to get more information about the seed swap, you can go to OhioValleyGreenCoalition.org. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now, when I call your name, if you're here to speak on the cell tower, just raise your hand or let me know. Otherwise, go ahead and come up to the dais. Jim Baruby? Cell tower. Wayne Maynard?
Good evening. My name is Wayne Maynard. I live at 609 Gridley Road. And I'm here this evening to bring to the council's attention my concern with the delay in ratifying the Fire District Ordinance Appendix 11. I was planning to attend the Building Appeals Commission meeting tomorrow, but I've learned that staff has recommended that the hearing be postponed. I'm a retired fire captain that worked for the Fire District for 36 years. Most of my career was spent working at fire stations in and around the Ojai Valley and in the Fire Prevention Bureau. I've stood before this body several times in the past as a representative of the fire district seeking and obtaining ratification by the city for the building standards adopted by the district. Your inaction to ratify the appendix is the same as disapproving it. For example, if a building permit has been accepted today, even if you could adopt the ordinance tonight, that application is not required to comply with the fire district sprinkler ordinance. My greatest concern is the message that the council is sending to its partner cities in the fire district. And I refer to them as partner cities because we all share the firefighting resources throughout the district. By the way, firefighting resources is jargon for fire trucks, okay? So what is this unspoken message that's being sent by the city of Ojai? It's clear to me that the city is telling the other cities in the jurisdiction that we don't want to burden our citizens or businesses with the extra cost to build in fire protection with fire sprinklers. We just want the district to send us more fire trucks. We don't believe that the regulations established by the fire district to save costs and fire suppression should apply to us. We just want the district to send us more fire trucks. Furthermore, the equivalent protection throughout the fire district is not important to us. We just want the district to send us more fire trucks. As you probably know, the primary funding source for fire protection comes from property taxes. It's a fact that the larger cities in the East County, because of their higher densities and higher appraised values for commercial and industrial properties, collect a higher percentage of revenue for the cost of firefighting resources than does the city of Ojai. That means that the property taxes revenues are flowing out of the East County and supports or subsidizes the firefighting resources here in Ojai Valley. Each time one of these studies has been conducted, the fire district would counter that the conclusions of the study by providing equivalent protection throughout the district was an added benefit to the whole district. It's clear that a regional approach to providing fire protection that provides equivalent protection saves money and provides better service than a city could provide on its own, particularly a city of Ojai because of our small size. In fact, there's national fire loss statistics that show fire loss is typically higher in smaller jurisdictions. I don't know about you, but if I was on the council in the city of Thousand Oaks and property tax revenues from our citizens is subsidizing fire protection in the city of Ojai, and the businesses and the citizens in Thousand Oaks are paying to protect their buildings with fire sprinklers in order to contain costs, I would be upset with the city of Ojai because of the unfair burden that they would be placing on my citizens in Thousand Oaks and the fire district. Because of the argument of equivalent protection is no longer
Mr. Maynard,
valid.
I need you to finish up.
I got one more paragraph.
Okay.
If the city of Ojai says that they want a lower level of protection, then they deserve what they can pay for. And the problem is we can't pay for it in our city for the level of protection we're getting. This is my concerns. By not ratifying Appendix L, you're stating that we want a lower level of protection than what is stated for the rest of the fire district. Your inaction by not ratifying the appendix chapter is the first step in a very slippery slope with the possibility of some very serious unintended consequences. My request is that the council put the fire district ratification on the next council agenda. You don't need a recommendation by the Building Appeals Commission to do the right thing. Ratify Appendix 11. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maynard.
Madam Mayor, could I just clarify that the Building Appeals Board meeting has not been canceled? They, in fact, will be discussing this item tomorrow, and anybody who's interested in it is welcome to attend and address the board.
And I will be attending that meeting. Okay, I have a speaker card from Jeff Lobel that specifies the cell tower, but I also have a speaker card from Mr. Lobel that just says open.
I would like to speak on the agenda item, and I was going to ask if you have other people speak on the other one. I'll withdraw the open.
Okay. Okay, and William Urich, is this on the cell tower?
Yep.
Okay.
Relates to something, though, that may ultimately land there, but it will remain to be seen. William Ulrich, 487 Gridley Road. And if there are any questions, I'll take them at the end, please. My compliments to Council Person Clapp on her dexterous manipulation of her fellow council members in successfully causing the retraction of my appointment to the Planning Commission and the subsequent removal of 3 appointees from the December council consent calendar. For clarification for the public, a consent calendar is agreed by all members for approval for procedural economy. In other words, to get things out of the way. Lest this appear merely as sour grapes on my part, please note that these actions and the subsequent cattle call re-interviews were merely an exercise to provide cover. But this process released me from my previous forbearance. And upon inquiry of Mayor Strobel last week, I learned just yesterday that there are three non-resident planning commissioners. Now, this is provided for by city ordinance. The 3 members are specifically past Chair Lawrence Nicklin, Stephen Foster, and Kathleen Nolan, who's up for reappointment tonight on the agenda. Now, These three individuals cannot vote in city elections, but can vote on planning commission matters. They review our plans and proposals and make recommendations to the city council regarding land and property use within the city. This is unconscionable. When there are 6 or fewer commissioners present, they compose the quorum required to do the people's business. By way of defense, Mayor Strobel directed me to City Code Section 10.1.01, wherein our ordinance provides for this unhappy scenario. Quote, up to 3 planning commissioners may be non-residents. It's outrageous. I am certain that, and especially in light of what's coming behind me with the cell tower, I'm certain that the majority of Ojai residents do not know this and would not support if they did know. Non-residents administering city ordinances to which these non-residents themselves are not subject. By the way, is everyone hearing me, or do I need to get a little closer? Okay.
Address your comments to the council, please.
I absolutely will, henceforth, Mayor Strobel. How about these 3 prospective planning commissioner appointees on the agenda tonight? Ms. Nolan is a non-resident. How about the other 2? That is a question that I'd appreciate an answer at the end, please. It appears that the council, the Planning Commission, and the Building Appeals Commission have spent almost all of their time in the past 2 months that I've been observing them swirling and trying to remedy the actions of city staff. That is Mr. Clark's city staff. And they must like it. That is you people must like it, the Planning Commission and the Building Appeals Commission. But this is not how the citizens, and I'm speaking for myself as well as other citizens I have spoken with, wish their city to be run. And specifically, this relates to issues with the housing element and a deletion of an entire chapter. Of course, the cell tower, and inspection on sale clause that has to come out of things. It's redoing work because you folks or someone on a commission passed it
Finish
without
up your
reading
comments,
it.
please.
I don't think I'm at, oh, excuse me. In closing, the outstanding cell tower, if not handled effectively, will result in either the installation of a cell tower in Ohio or the defense of an AT&T lawsuit. Thank you.
Let's hold the clapping, please. Wendy Hilgers, and is this on the cell tower, or is Wendy here? Is it on the cell tower? No. Okay. Go ahead and come up.
Thank you very much. Wendy Hilgers, Park Road.
Mic down.
Thank you. I just came tonight to say a few words about Tony Sanchez, a friend of our family since the early 1970s. And I think just sitting here listening and looking around the room, I think everybody in this room is so happy that they've come to Ojai, been able to find this place, to make a living here, and to meet wonderful people. And that's exactly who Tony was. To me, he exemplifies what's so great about this place to live. He was a man who, beyond his everyday job, dedicated a great portion of each day to helping people. He belonged to the Early Lions Club. He was at all the functions. He volunteered tirelessly. I saw him all throughout the school years, and everywhere I went, I seemed to see him. He would stop to help anybody who came and needed some help. He has a wonderful family, his wife Gloria, and his adult children and now grandchildren. I think one of the reasons I love living here is because you do get to see the circle of life with the good things and the sad things. And this is a sad thing, but he leaves such a legacy. And I know there are people in this room who would even love to talk about him. But he's just a treasure, and I couldn't let it pass without saying something on his behalf. He just was a golden man. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and I believe that the other speakers are specifically for the cell tower. And I probably disarranged the order, so I'm just going to call you up in the order I have now. Jim Berube. And we're going to limit the time to 2 minutes, because we have a lot of speakers. It's not on the agenda, but we want to hear you.
Thank you. My name is Jim Berube, and I live at 1124 Del Prado Court in Ojai, California. I live within 200 feet of this monstrosity called a 65-foot mono-eucalyptus cell tower. Does this sound like something that belongs in the Ojai residential neighborhood? I have lived in Ojai for almost 40 years. I've worked for the Ojai Unified School District for more than 30 years, ending my career as assistant superintendent. One of my major responsibilities was facilities. During my tenure as a school administrator, I know the importance of adhering to policies, timelines, and procedures. I must say the cell tower project is a procedural mess from the beginning. I have seen what happens when rules and regulations have not been followed. The picture is not pretty. The long process ends up in litigation with public money wasted and residents losing trust in their officials. This is the picture, a 65-foot eucalyptus cell tower tree sticking out of a vacant lot in a residential neighborhood, destroying residents' view shed, polluting the wetland environment, destroying a small-town character, and negatively affecting property values. This is not the Ojai I know. This is not the way the city treats their residents. Now is the time to get this mess under control. If the tower is truly needed, which this has not been demonstrated to me, move it out of the residential neighborhood where Ojai residents will not be affected. The Ojai I know is a unique city with residents looking after one another and a city council protecting our small town character. Thank you.
Thank you. Bruce Garber.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Bruce Garber. I live on 11954 Sulphur Mountain Road in the Upper Ojai, and I just want to read one paragraph to make it short of a letter that I wrote to the Planning Commission, but it still applies, I think, and it has the key issues. So even though I believe that our City Council will react more positively than perhaps the Planning Commission, I would hope that you would listen to this and see the importance of these issues. Also, as someone who went through 8 years of struggling against the radar tower in the Upper Ojai, which we lost even though we raised piles of money and fought and had all kinds of evidence and everything, and they, unlike here where the people only could have a couple of days to respond to hear that the cell phone tower was being put up. They put it up there without us even knowing it was being built. And my neighbors would leave notes in each other's mailbox saying, "Do you know what's being built up there?" So that's how they did that. And we fought it for 8 years and lost. I would hope that this is addressed to the Planning Commission. I would hope that by now, after the overwhelming pain and outrage expressed at that meeting, which was the one, as you recall, and letters that you have received since, that you are finally acknowledging the real concerns of our neighbors and will vote against any type of cell tower being erected in that location or anywhere else in or close to town. Yes, we have heard that the FCC considers the levels of EMF the tower would emit safe, but we know that there is a long history in other countries and in the U.S. of people sick and dying from the long-term exposure to this kind of EMF, and we had tons of information of the same kind. I've got boxes full of it when we were fighting the radar tower. And to quote Dr. Robin Dernhoft in his January 22nd letter to you, many authoritative reports and studies, quote, show adverse biological impacts way below the threshold of heating. And these are studies
Finish
that
up,
you
Mr. Garber.
Okay. So even though the FCC considers any level below the threshold of safe and will not allow health issues to be part of the approval process, and even though they may not allow it, I still hope that you powerfully reject the placement of this tower. No, without any qualifications or whatever, and saying if you change it, you can still put it there. It shouldn't be in that neighborhood as much as our radar tower should not be in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Heidi Rhodes. Raymond Sims?
He's at the hospital doing his job, so can you put it in the end and see? Oh, there he is.
Perfect timing.
Timing is everything. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak to you again. Obviously, I remain extremely concerned about this cell tower proposition, and I want to stress, first of all, I agree very much with what Jim Berube said. I heard the tail end of his comments. It is imperative that you address this issue sooner than later, to have proper regulations regarding this, because this is not simply in my backyard kind of a process. This is going to affect the entire valley from here forward, and we all need to think about that. And I know that there are ways that this can be satisfactorily managed in a way that will not harm or be a problem for the citizens. So I'm going to keep my comments brief, but I urge you to act and move this project forward and decline it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Lobel?
I'll just talk on number 2, on the
Okay. Jan Lewis?
Mayor Strobel, City Council, City Staff. As you may recall, I'm a realtor in Ojai, and I also live at 301 Oriole Street, so I'm not within 200 feet of the tower, but I am within the neighborhood, so I'm very concerned both as a professional and as a resident in the neighborhood. Something that occurred to me, which may help you and may help the Planning Commission, is that the tower is going to be used for something illegal in the city of Ojai. It will be used to transmit smart meter information. Did we know that? Is that new information?
The council's not going to respond, so please just make your comments.
All right, but I just wanted to make sure that I saw some looks of surprise, but it occurred to me, and I looked it up, and sure enough, that's how smart meters transmit their information. They use telephone cell towers. And we all know that the telephone cell service is very strong already, so I guess they don't really need it for telephone, so I guess they need it for something else. So I'll limit my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Catlett?
Good evening. My name is Dave Catlett. I live at 1206 San Ramon Way. I'm about 250 feet away from this thing that's being proposed. I'm here to talk about the cell tower again, and to try to keep the pressure on and try to bring home the point how important this is to my wife and I, my neighbors, and the surrounding huge area of homes, and most important to the city of Ojai. My first response is this: how did we get to this point in the first place? To paraphrase the timeline of the permit process, you have Robert Mullane deny the permit as incomplete. Then you get Ann McLaughlin to put a rubber stamp as complete. Then we get a notice on a Friday in December and have to respond by Monday. 2 days of stewing over what the hell this is all about. We then go to the planning meeting with a huge support of the people to talk about our fears and the total accountability of how this has happened. We then go to the city council meeting a few weeks ago, and we give you an earful and over the frustrations and the negative impact of the tower. I'm a simple guy, and after that meeting I read your faces. I think you know the cell tower is a make or break issue, and I think you know the city screwed up. First, I want the cell tower gone. Do not hide under your desk and pretend this is going away. Second, the telecom law firm for the study of the cell tower ordinance that the city is going to retain possibly for $10,000 to $20,000 should be talking only to the city council. We don't know if he's for the city's best interests or for AT&T. And third, Robert Clark has dropped the ball on this whole issue. Clark and his staff are afraid if the city is sued and they deny the permit, I say, we're not afraid, and the Ojai is going to do the right thing. Clark and his staff needs to act like men and not like little boys. If they can't fix this problem,
Catlett, finish up, please.
if they can't fix this problem that they got us in, then maybe he should resign or the city council terminate him soon. Again, you, the members of the city council, are here to protect the well-being of the citizens of the city of Ojai, and we want clear and concise meetings and open talks from the city staff. We do not want shady closed-door talk about the cell tower permit. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to need a new gavel pretty soon. Michelle Thomas?
Madam Mayor, City Council members, and my fellow citizens. Thanks for letting me speak about this again. My name's Michelle Thomas. I live at 1125 Del Prado Court, directly adjacent to the proposed AT&T cell tower site. I've lived there for 30 years. Over the past few weeks, my neighbors and I have been organizing in opposition to this project. We've circulated petitions. We've gathered in my backyard for strategy meetings. We've written letters to the editor and consulted lawyers. And respectfully, council members, you should know that we will not rest until this matter is put to bed. We must not allow a 65-foot cell tower to be constructed in a residential neighborhood. The application was fundamentally flawed. It did not demonstrate need. It does not consider alternative sites. Let me repeat that. The application for a 65-foot cell tower in my neighborhood fails to even demonstrate that the tower's necessary, not to mention that it's next to a preschool. Okay, I really want to address the economic issues. Besides the fact that our property values will be lowered and therefore revenue to the city will be lowered, therefore less city projects, consider the fact that this will also directly affect both my and my neighbors' financial security as we face retirement. Our homes, in many cases, are our biggest investment in our futures. Ojai is a special place. We don't take out native trees for frivolous reasons in Ojai. Our city paves roads around trees to preserve them. Because Ojai is a special place, I'm asking all my fellow citizens, please get involved in this issue. Bring 5 friends to the next city council meeting and to the next planning commission. Circulate positions. I'm almost done. Talk to neighbors, write letters. I further request that the city council direct the planning commission to place the AT&T application on its agenda. We don't have that much time left, and notice must be given before the matter can be heard and voted on, or we will end up in a lawsuit. So, to conclude, we Ojai citizens, through you, our elected officials, need to be in control of our own city and neighborhoods. We don't let big corporations or special interest groups make decisions affecting our neighborhoods and our lives. This project has dire economic, environmental consequences and economic, I misspoke, but you know what I mean. My bottom line is the AT&T cell tower needs to be stopped now. Please help me, help us, help the city. Thank you.
Doug Labar? Is Doug here?
He was here earlier.
Delaney Ellis Labar? Not here?
I don't see.
Michael Francis Smith?
My name is Michael Francis Smith, and I live on Golden West. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you. I do not, however, appreciate the limiting of my speech. With all due respect, madam. I asked what you intend to accomplish by limiting speech in a populace that is obviously very upset about this issue. Don't you think that it's going to make the populace more angry? I think you should be doing the opposite. I think you should be opening up all kinds of conversation about what has happened. Let me start out my remarks by saying, nothing about us without us. Have you heard that phrase before? Let me repeat it. Nothing about us without us. You have your hands in my pocket. I'm going to buy a home here, and immediately the property values are going to be devalued. Who's going to pay me back for that loss? Are you going to pay me back, Mr. Clark?
Address the council, please.
I will address whomever I choose to address at this moment, ma'am, with all due respect. I'm extremely angry and upset with this process. It has clearly been mishandled. You are asking for specific suggestions as to what should be done. I have a really novel idea. You need to hold people accountable. You need to specifically hold your staff accountable. This dancing around the pin and saying, oh, we didn't know this, we didn't know that. You have been full of excuses and they must stop. Specifically, you have been ordered to put this, to tell the Planning Commission to put this on their agenda. We are pleased that you are hiring a special attorney. We demand that you hold a meeting directly with that special attorney without the presence of Mr. Clark and without the presence of Mr. Fletcher, who are the problem. Let me finish my statements. Nothing about us without us.
I'm probably really going to mutilate this. Mark, Enneking.
Enneking. My name is Mark Enneking. I live at 1204 San Ramon Way. And the biggest issue...
Can't hear you, sir. Could you get the microphone closer? Thank you.
The issue that I have is what you've heard from many others, property values. But there's people that... I'm not sure what they think this tower may look like when it's erected in a residential neighborhood. And I think it would be beneficial to some to have a temporary crane put on the site right where the tower goes and raise it 65 feet so we could see what we're going to have. That's a suggestion that I think could have some merit, even though it sounds silly. But appreciate your time. Thank you.
Actually, I think that's a good idea. Okay, Dan Redden.
Hello, I'm Dan Redden. I live at 388 Lark Ellen. I've never been here before. I don't know any of you. I was at the car wash today, and I opened the Ojai Valley Guide, and it was full of all the things that we all treasure about this town. And there was a page that noted why people love Ojai. And I was reminded that I really do love the town. I've been asked a couple of times to join you, but I was sick, and then something else happened. But I do love this town, and I see it as a town that I can manage myself around. Been here 20 years. I've finally figured it out, kind of. And or a large neighborhood. It's just so much easier than where I used to live. And it's clear to me, I'm going to say the same things, and Jim Berube, wherever you are, I could have left after he spoke, but to picture a 6.5 story something near my house is mind-blowing. And to imagine that 20 years later, after making all the improvements, I might lose some value, that's kind of heartbreaking. And so I don't know what to do except to tell you that I'm a pretty reasonable person, but I'm getting more and more reason to be unreasonable about where things stand. So I'm on record. Nice seeing you.
Loran Sims.
Good evening. I'm not here to make anybody angry. I'm just here to say that the 150 days is ticking, and I don't know where the 150 days stops. And I think that's something that we need to know, because if we pass the 150 days, we're all going to be in court. And I'm happy to go to court, believe me, because I think we'll win. But I don't think we need to spend our money like that. I think we need to take this, and you all need to work with us like we're asking. I know you all say that you're doing everything you can, but I'll tell you, I haven't seen it. I haven't had any phone calls. I haven't, except hearing from people that come into my office all the time saying, gosh, keep doing what you're doing. I don't know what you all are doing. I can't get an explanation for what you all are doing. And I really don't appreciate being told that I only have 2 minutes when this is my life. And I have been spending the last 6 weeks in turmoil over this. And you all say each of us can have 2 minutes? This is our lives. This is our lives. And I really appreciate everything that you all, hopefully, and I know you will, do to help us. And I want to thank you.
Keep it quiet out there. Okay, and I called earlier Doug Labart. Is he back in? Oh, the Labar's gone? Okay, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on the cell tower? And if you'd give your name and your address, please.
My name is Lakshman Razaya, Rasiah. I'm a physician. I've been in this community for 30 years and practiced along with my colleague over there. I just want to add my voice in its limited way to the comments that have been made already. So I won't elaborate on the ill effects and the evils of having such a monstrosity in our neighborhood. Its disadvantages and ill effects have been adequately and amply elaborated on. I just want to say that we're really privileged to be in this valley. We've lived in London, in England, practiced medicine there, my wife and I, in Vancouver, Canada for many, many years, and now we have the privilege of being in this valley, here to participate in various aspects of its functioning. And we've done so with a great sense of gratitude. That this is a special valley is emphasized to us every day as we wake up in the mornings and look out at Topa Topa. This valley is a special. We are very familiar with other wonderful valleys on this planet, the Stad Sanen Valley in the Bernese Oberland in Switzerland, and Rishi Valley in India, southern India. And we can tell you with great authenticity that there's an energy here that we haven't found anywhere else. The statistics clinically of the ill effects of radiation have been amply elaborated on eloquently, and I merely wish to submit my own support of the effects and the validation of such information. Those facts seem cold and clinical and hard to comprehend, but I would invite you to visit a children's ward or a pediatrician's office and carry with you those images of children suffering. And if the suffering of children and grandchildren are not likely to move your hearts, then I don't know what will. There's a shift in paradigm consciousness, a paradigm shift in consciousness taking place. I don't think we in this room should miss out on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on the cell tower?
Yes, please. Good evening. My name is Ted Miller. I live at 574 Los Alamos, 150 feet from the proposed site of the cell tower. I commend the council for your determination to hire competent counsel to advise you. I'm a lawyer myself, and I offer my assistance to the council and to your council in resolving this problem. But let me make one point that I think has been overlooked in all of this. An overwhelming record has already been made before the Planning Commission and before this council in opposition to this cell tower. We have a statute, and you all are familiar with it, 10-2-1712, and it has provisions in it that bear on the determination of whether this cell tower should be permitted. And what are they? Section B, guidelines and requirements. Encourage the location of towers in non-residential areas. Encourage users of antennas to configure them in a way that minimizes adverse visual impacts. And most importantly, for you as our elected representatives and sworn to protect the community that you serve, and you serve ably, and we're grateful for your service, to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of this community. And it's not just health. It's the well-being of the community. It's residents that are in fear. It's property values that are depressed. It's a nursery school that's going to go out of business. It's been in this community for 50 years because of the cloud of this cell tower over their ability to get financing to continue their operations. But there's one other provision, and that is not aspirational. It's not a maybe. It's not a wish certificate. Any application must identify a reasonable number of alternative sites. This application identified none. It was dead on arrival. It should have been buried, and we shouldn't be here now, 9 months after this started, talking about it. You should consult with your counsel when you retain him. This can be put to bed very promptly. An overwhelming record has been made. You've heard it. It satisfies all of the policies and requirements of this statute. We've met them. AT&T has done nothing. And this should be rejected, and rejected promptly. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on the cell towers? Okay. I'm going to just move right along because this is an unscheduled item. Okay, next up is our consent calendar, and before we do anything on the consent calendar, I've had a request to pull item L, Transportation Development Act, TDA Article 3, Bicycle Pedestrian Fund Grant. And Mr. Clark, I don't recall whether I gave you a copy of this email that I received.
Okay, I read it.
Okay, any other items that the council members would like pulled, removed, discussed?
Hey, Dave, could you run that back to Greg Grant?
I'll entertain a motion for approval of consent items A through K.
One question.
Okay.
We'll refer to a later item, but the minutes of the regular Building Appeals Board meeting, I did not attend those meetings. I did read the minutes, but I'd like to verify that those who did attend, such as Mr. Clark or our rep, read the minutes and agree with what the minutes say. Does anybody remember being there? It would be the minutes of the regular Building Appeals Board.
Which item is that?
November 13th, number H, as in
Okay.
Harry. November 13th, October 9th, and September 25th. There are three sets of minutes.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
It's my understanding that these minutes that come to us for approval have already been approved by the board or the commissions, have they not?
Correct.
I don't know.
By the members of those?
Some of them have, yeah.
Some of them.
And, Madam Mayor, if I could say, it's what you're doing here not is approving the minutes, but simply receiving and filing them.
Right.
Yes.
As official
Okay.
records
And
from
if
that
you
board
look
or
at
commission.
Thank you.
page
That's better. Mhm.
1-59, the board minutes have been signed by the
You're right.
Rob Clark and
I
Bill
agree.
Wyrick.
I'm in error, thank you.
Okay. and I did attend that meeting. Any other comments on anything on the agenda? Okay, is there a motion to approve items A through K?
I move to approve item 1A through K.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Latz?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes. Mr. Clark, would you address item L, and maybe you could mention what the email said that I just passed to you?
Actually, I passed it on to Mr. Grant, and he's here to address this item.
And Judy Murphy is not here? Oh, there she is. Let's let should we have Mr. Grant comment first, and then we'll let Judy speak?
Good evening, Council, Mayor and Council members. Yes, this item, I was actually just taking advantage of some of the open discussions here that were being made, and we were hopefully being quiet enough in the kitchen area and discussing it. So I was talking with some of the residents on Grand Avenue that were here and concerned about it, including Judy. And I think the major concern was this is a TDA grant application, which is annually. There's Article 3 grant opportunities that come up for bike and pedestrian improvements. And we've been successful in the past couple of years applying for these grants. And, we had the bike improvements last year approved for the bike trail crossings. And the previous year, we had the Aliso and the Matilha crossings, as well as a crossing at Whispering Oaks and at the Kenyatta for improvements study that was a grant approved for that as well. So this one, with a complete streets support, as well as the council support, it's been a primary goal to have bike lanes set up within the city. So in last year's capital improvement program, we had the Grand Avenue bike lane study approved. And it's been on the back burner somewhat because it's somewhat controversial with some concerns about the removal of a parking lane on one side. And that is the primary concern with the residents in that area, is that if this grant is approved, that it's fait accompli, that there's going to be parking removed on one side of the street. And I was just explaining that is not the case at all, that we already began the concept studies we have out there. And that was one of many options we have. Not many, I wouldn't say there's that many, although we just came up with some interesting new options, I think, out there. So, the basic options be to leave it as it is with sharrows on it. Another option is to squeeze down the travel lanes and the park lanes and create minimal bike lanes at both sides. Another option, at the other extreme, is to remove parking on one side and create larger bike lanes on both sides of the travel lanes. So those are kind of the rough concepts. We've also been talking tonight, and I think the most important thing is there was some thought that this would forego any further outreach. And this really, that's what I was trying to clarify to the group, is that we haven't really began the outreach. Really, we've just been working with a consultant and with the Complete Streets group to have the concepts developed, and then the outreach should be significant, that we would obviously notify everybody on Grand and within a certain distance of Grand, and have public outreach through the newspaper and other places to look at all these options and try to find out what the best is. And briefly, also, one of the concepts that we just were talking about was that 13-foot equestrian trail on the south side, or the right-of-way we have, possibly creating that into a multi-use area, putting decomposed granite on it. And that way, the concern is, how do the young kids, we had that very successful bike to school week, and there was roughly 250 kids by the end of the week that were riding to and from school. It was great over to Topa. When the bike lane, when there was no parking on the street, we had plenty of room. So that obviously has a lot of concerns when people live on the street, but maybe there's a way to make this work. We have narrow 4-foot lanes on both sides where we have the hardcore bikers zipping down there, but the younger kids or anybody else who wants to go a bit at an easier pace could use that 13-foot equestrian area, would have a multi-purpose trail. So that's just another concept, and that'd be part of the outreach, is to try to refine and develop support for any specific concept. So to wrap this up, that is the misconception, I think, of what this grant was, is that we're going to go remove parking and be done with this. But that is really a small part of the grant application. A big part of it really was to realign where signal comes into Grand, how we've got that strange offset that all traffic engineers agree is an extremely dangerous situation. Luckily, it hasn't been that dangerous situation, but if there were accidents there, there's a huge liability on the city side. So to realign that, and while we do that, widen it and provide enough room for bike lanes in there. So that'd be the majority of the grant if we were successful on this grant. We've been successful, we shouldn't assume it would happen.
Yeah.
And that would
Any
be it.
questions from council for Mr. Grant?
Madam Mayor, my only question is, we're referring to some sort of an email that was received that's not part of our packet. And I'd like to know who sent the email and what it says, because I think you just addressed it. I'm gathering that the email was concerned about losing parking.
Yes.
Okay. So perhaps you can, for the record, say who the email is from.
And I think that
I've lost
okay.
the email, so I don't
Okay.
know where it is now.
All right.
And I think,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Judy, what's your last name? What's your last name? And Judy, yes, Judy Murphy's
Okay.
here, and we were just talking at length.
Okay.
In the cookie area back.
Thank you,
back.
Judy.
So, okay.
And Madam Mayor, I do have a question for Greg, because it seems like I've heard about Complete Street. Is it open? Are there meetings open to the public?
Yes.
Yes, they are.
And are they put on the city's calendar?
And that's through the planning, they notice it on the website, and I think they even do, I'd have to find out exactly what the public notices, but it is publicly noticed, I think because of the Brown considerations.
You post agenda. Okay, just to let the public know that it is open to our residents and any questions they have. And I think that Complete Streets, there's a lot of great citizens that run that subcommittee, and work great with Greg. So just like to invite the community.
Any other questions?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I know with remodels, there's a requirement with the city that if you remodel and you don't have a sidewalk, you have to put in a sidewalk and a curb. And so we have all these patchworks of sidewalks throughout the community. An idea was suggested to me recently that instead of requiring that instead there be, what's the word for it? Instead of having to put in the sidewalk, there's money that's put into a fund for street
Like an
improvements.
in lieu fee?
An in lieu fee, thank you. And leading up to what I wanted to say is that along Grand, there are certain remodels where that has occurred, where these sidewalks are now, the sidewalks, what is it that Shel Silverstein said? That book, that cute little book, Where the Sidewalk Ends. And I also understand that that's supposed to be an equestrian trail, so I don't understand why we're requiring, at least in that area where it's supposed to be an equestrian trail, the sidewalks and the gutters be put in when there's a remodel. So maybe that's something for further discussion, the two ideas, one of an in lieu fee rather than a sidewalk curb for this patchwork quilt through the community, and as well as maybe suspending the requirement, at least on the equestrian trail.
And we're definitely aware of that there's been some conflict, and we haven't run into it since my time here, but we're definitely going to research it before there's any requirement. As I understand it, there was supposed to be an equestrian trail dedicated there, so the sidewalks are in question, like you're saying.
Any other questions, comments from the council? Okay, Mr. Grant, if you would stay close after we finish with the speakers. Judy Murphy?
Hello. Thank you, council and staff, for letting me speak. I'm Judy Murphy on Grand Avenue. A few neighbors alerted me to the fact that last week the Complete Streets subdivision or sub-council, whatever, of the Planning Commission was supposed to meet to discuss a grant application that would conceivably change the parking on Grand Avenue. We were all very concerned about the various safety issues that could entail. We came to the meeting and found that it had been canceled this last Wednesday. It has been rescheduled for tomorrow. So tomorrow we will all come again, and Greg will explain in detail what the group wants to do with that Signal to Grand section of road, as well as what they would like to see, several options with the parking on Grand Avenue. The last half hour, I missed all of the cell tower conversation because Greg and I were comparing notes in the kitchen and came up with a couple of possibilities. So I think this is something that, you know, if the involved people sit down and work it out, we can come up with an agreeable solution. So the timing on this just got a little muddled. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else in the audience like to speak on the TDA, Lost My Place, Bike Pedestrian Fund Grant? Wendy?
Thank you, Wendy Hilgers, Park Road. I guess my concern is always about the process, and it seems so many times the community doesn't hear about something till it's a full-blown design or idea or something, and I always wondered why project like this didn't come from the bottom up. If the citizens on Grand Avenue had concerns about how things were going on their street, they could come to the city and express those concerns rather than sort of going from the top down. It sort of like a solution looking for a problem kind of a thing. And I've spoken with Greg. He's wonderful. He's so accessible. And when he was telling me about the turning from Grand Avenue onto Signal, my first concern, and I've seen this in other areas, is if you widen it and straighten it out more, it's going to create a speeding problem. I think right now it naturally causes traffic to slow. So I just asked him what the accident reports were, what the records were there and on Grand Avenue, and I think those should be considered too. But we'll have a chance to talk about that at the meetings. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience like to speak? Okay, I'll bring it back to council. And the email we've been referring to requested that we continue this item until after it had been heard by the Complete Streets. Is that the subcommittee that's hearing the item?
My understanding, and Mr. Grant can correct me, is that there's an application deadline that occurs before our next city council meeting.
The stars are aligned. We've been notified that there's another week and a half extension on this grant.
There you go.
Yeah, so.
Council comments, questions, motions, silence.
Well, I don't think there's actually a need to take any action. We'll just bring it back after the discussion.
Okay. So this item is being continued. Okay, next on our agenda is legal services agreement with Telecom Law Firm.
I'll go ahead first, I guess. Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. At our last meeting, after hearing the public input from the people who live in the neighborhood of the proposed cell tower, we discussed the need to obtain expertise, special legal expertise, as well as technical expertise in order to address the issues that were brought up by the neighbors. It just so happened that Mr. Fletcher was in the process of attending a program put on by Telecom Law Firm, Mr. Jonathan Kramer. He's one of the leading experts in this area and is also an attorney who's helped some of the other cities that were of interest to the neighbors, in particular Calabasas. Because of the urgency of some of the issues that were raised, I used my budget authority to go ahead and retain him. And he actually has reviewed our files, had some discussions with us, and has made some recommendations that will be presented to you. But we are asking that the City Council consider extending that authority up to $20,000, and then we'll see what we need to do after that. And I don't know, if Joe, did you want to
Mr.
add anything?
Fletcher?
I was just going to add that among public agencies, Mr. Kramer is particularly well-known. He is unique in that he began his career as I don't know if it's good or bad, as an engineer and an attorney, and as a telecommunications engineer. And he is a recognized national authority on a lot of issues, both with cable and with now wireless. He has written the FCC's Guide to Local Government on radio frequency emission regulations. So he brings a technical expertise, second to none, as well, of course, the legal expertise. And I was going to add that, yes, he was speaking at a telecom conference last week in Los Angeles that I attended. It was both a combination public agency industry seminar, and he spoke at it and was recognized by participants from the industry, as well as local government, as someone who is seen nationally on these points. So he brings to us not only, particularly the technical knowledge we can help us evaluate the applications and particularly address, which is, as everyone spoke about this evening, the critical issue about the actual need for the service, which is required by our ordinance, as well as evaluate adequacy of alternatives. In addition, he will give us additional assistance on the processing. And the first thing we've been working on is this 150-day, what's called the shot clock, that people have been talking about. The shot clock. Yeah, unfortunately, there's a term, it's called the FCC shot clock. There's federal regulations that this has been discussed by a lot of folks tonight, concerns about a time running out for us. And it's a federal regulation that requires local governments to process applications for these facilities in 90 days in the case of co-locations where you're adding another facility to an existing tower or modifications to an existing tower. Or it's not just towers, there's also building tops and other facilities, and 150 days for new facilities. So 150 days is the applicable regulation for this. I think the important thing I want the public to know and the council to know is that this isn't a deemed approved provision. That we don't lose jurisdiction over the matter. Even if the 150 days expire, it's not in our interest to have the 150 days expire. But all it does is allows AT&T to go to federal court and get a court order to complete the process. The court cannot take away our land use regulations or land use jurisdiction. Obviously, it's neither in AT&T's interest nor in the city's interest to do this under the guise of a federal judge. That doesn't make the process work any better. In fact, we've been in dialogue with AT&T about this time period is extendable. They can agree to extend that deadline, and we've been in dialogue with them about doing that to make sure that this application gets properly evaluated through public hearings. And obviously AT&T is interested in getting it done too. That's the main policy thing behind the shot clock. So he's been already helping us with working through resolutions of that, and so he will be available to consult with me and the staff and the council as needed.
Madam Mayor, I've got two comments. One is, I think it's very important, and one of the speakers mentioned it. I don't remember which one. It may have been Jim. This is a contract between the telecom law firm and the city of Ojai. And I really think it's important that Mr. Kramer report to the council through the mayor and not the staff. I'm very concerned with information being filtered to us in a way that we're not getting maybe all of the information, because it seems as though this legal services agreement is coming to us because we're trying to be in a defensive mode. This application has been in-house since when, July?
Yes, I think July.
Okay. And now it's February, and we're having to hire a lawyer to advise us on something that's been in-house for 6 or 7 months. So I really think that it truly should be a legal services contract with the city, with Mr. Kramer reporting to the mayor with advisories to the to the city manager, and of course, Mr. Fletcher can discuss things with him, but I think his main focus should be through the mayor and the mayor to the city council. The other thing is that what is it that we need? I can understand us needing future advice on perhaps identifying pertinent locations throughout the city for future cell tower development. But what is it that we need to get advice from him now, other than take it to the planning commission and have it acted on? I'm at a little bit of a loss there why we need his services now at a time when we should be moving this forward to either an approval or a denial.
Madam Mayor, if I may, one of the issues has been raised, and unfortunately, I can't disclose everything here in a public session. But one of the issues here is you're absolutely right, and we want to move this forward to a decision as quickly as possible. That's what the community wants. It's what the applicant wants. It's the right thing to do. It's just very important that when this is done, whatever decision is made by the Planning Commission and if appealed by the City Council, that we have the absolute most defensible administrative record to defend the decision made. The goal is, if litigation happens, litigation happens, but it is expensive, it is time-consuming, and we need to do all the appropriate things to avoid it if possible, and if it's unavoidable, that we have the best record to defend the decision the City Council made, and his expertise will be very helpful in doing that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Clapp?
Oh, I just wanted to echo Councilman Blatt's request that Mr. Kramer reports directly to the mayor and then to City Council as well. I agree.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith?
Thank you, Mayor. Where is his office located? Is he in solo practice, or it's a team, or what?
It's the law offices of Jonathan Kramer. They use the telecom law firm is his name. They're in West Los Angeles. He has a staff of two other attorneys and other support staff. He unfortunately couldn't come this evening. He is up in Pleasant Hill at a planning commission meeting over a very controversial cell tower.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I also would like to echo Councilmember Blatt's on reporting to the mayor and then to us. Also, I did have a similar question as Councilmember Blatt's, is what exactly is he going to do for us? And I hopefully he could give us that answer. And then also, I would like a request on the statement to the public as soon as possible in regards to all their concerns. I just think that and there need to be clarification, and there hasn't been. And I absolutely understand why some are angry, some are vocal, because it's a very important issue to them. So and also to us. So.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, what Mr. Kramer will do is be a consultant as a special counsel, assisting me on legal issues with the application, how to properly deal with analysis of the application. And obviously we have to reevaluate it because, as you know, the recommendation originally of the Planning Commission was for approval. So obviously our first responsibility is to go back and reevaluate the application, ask for additional information from AT&T to the extent that there is inadequate information to establish the requirements of the conditional use permit terms. And he brings unique expertise because he can also, without necessarily having to hire another consultant, he can also help us on the technical questions. We saw if folks that attended that study session with the Planning Commission, there are maps, a service area, there's blobby colored maps that we had that shows levels of coverage in the valley and where their deficient levels of coverage are that they're justifying the need for this. And we want and need to be able to more deeply evaluate that data to counter, to the extent that it's true, counter the technical assertions underlying this application, so that again we can really deeply evaluate what's proposed and then make a recommendation to the Planning Commission and Council on what to do with it. That also can include, evaluating alternative sites. I'm not comfortable simply rejecting the application because I didn't propose alternative sites. Yes, you could maybe do that. I'm not sure that's necessarily in the city's best interest in terms of a great administrative record on this application. But so those are things he can do for us. I can add also, he does have the ability to do public presentations, to do workshops with the council or the planning commission or the public on the issues, the broader issues about wireless service and wireless technologies and other technologies other than what's called a macro cell. That's what this is called. That we can talk with you about whether you want to do any of those things. There's obviously costs that go along with that, but in terms of outreach and communication and public education, he also has that capacity to do that for us also, if that's something the council wants to do.
Once an application is stamped complete, can the city pull that back?
I'd rather not discuss that.
If I may interrupt, we're getting off the mark here.
Okay, thank you.
The agenda item is to consider approval of the legal services agreement with telecom law firm, not to exceed $20,000. And we are going to have a closed session meeting later, and that's when these questions should be addressed. Councilmember Blatch, you had a question?
No, I'm ready for some
Okay.
public comment.
Well, I had a couple of comments. And there's a real fine line here, because if we are, because of the possibility or the potential for litigation, there's certain things that we should not say publicly. So without saying anything, at some point, I would like each of the council members to be provided with a chronology, good, bad, or ugly. When did this come to the city? What did we do? What did we undo, etc. I would like a strategy, and again, that's not something that would be open in public, but I would like to have a strategy developed very early so that the council knows what our intent is, what our direction is. And I'd like a timeline so that we can at least vaguely respond to the citizens. So we're not unknowledgeable. Any other comments, questions from the council? No? Anyone? Yes, we do have speakers from the public. Jeff Lobel?
Good evening, Mayor Strobel. Good evening, council members. My name is Jeff Lobel. I live in Ojai. First of all, the application was first received and stamped on June the 26th. Part of it was stamped on the 25th. To be more specific, the letter of rejection from Mr. Mullane was, I believe, on the 22nd of July. Secondly, I hope that the contract is between telecom law and the council. The issue of privilege and everything else that we're having to dance around here today is certainly adequate with a licensed lawyer in the in the state of California to preserve any privileges, and doesn't necessarily need to go through Mr. Fletcher at his hourly rate plus the hourly rate of this new expert. Secondly, moving quickly on, there's been some discussion about the completeness of the record. Several of us who are lawyers worked very hard to provide and write letters to the Planning Commission to supplement the oral record that was provided at the last hearing and would be provided now, which very carefully went through all of the reasons why this cell tower could be rejected by the city using the city's own wireless code. I think that if Mr. Kramer is entitled to, should see the entire record, and we'll see that there's quite a few defensible reasons, and that it should not just be the emotional record that is presented orally, but there's a very detailed written record upon which to litigate this matter. I urge you to move quickly. I keep hearing, well, we can delay, we can negotiate with AT&T, we can do all of these things. Their application was deemed accepted. As much as I disagree with the city's handling of this matter, it was deemed accepted. They indicated at the last hearing they were going to submit additional information. They knew it wasn't complete. Why on earth we would then somehow pull back, or they know it's not complete. We know it's not complete to the extent that it didn't show need, or may not have shown need, and certainly didn't show alternate sites and has other deficiencies, and they're just waiting. And that hurts the council, the city, it hurts the relationship with the citizens, and it costs more money because we can study this for a long time and spend a lot of money on attorneys and everything else. So I urge, with Mr. Kramer's obvious review, that we move quickly, that we not sign a letter with AT&T to give them more rights going forward. Also, the final comment is, and I think Mayor Strobel mentioned this before, I remember at the last meeting that Councilmember Blatz mentioned an investigation into what transpired previously. And I hope that that is forthcoming. I understand the public may not be able to hear it, but I really believe that the neighbors and the rest of the citizens of Ojai would feel that this is, one, being taken care of, and two, not likely to happen to some other part of town if the mistakes that occurred during this processing or lack of processing are clearly addressed and remedied. One of those mistakes is Rincon Consulting. Apparently there's an evergreen contract from 2006 that they still work under. They're the only ones that seem to be working for the city. They have a reputation, I believe it's even on their website, that they just want to force these things through. It seems to me that you need a more independent, less biased, and certainly with the new city planner, she should get to pick some new people. There should be open bidding. But to use the same people and expect this to come out differently in the future is less likely to occur.
Yeah.
And with
Finish
that,
up, Mr. Lopel.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And I'm going to remind everyone that the agenda item is a discussion on the approval of a legal services agreement with telecom law firm.
Move to approve.
No, we have other speakers.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, you can stand up. I'm very sorry. I thought she was moving towards.
Okay.
I don't want to interrupt.
If you'll give me your name, I'll just restack them here.
No.
My name is Ted Miller, and I spoke earlier about the general issue. I'd also like to address the legal services issue that is now under consideration. You've heard a lot about this, and I'm not going to belabor the point, but it is critical that we have a transparent process. And what I heard just now is that AT&T is working with the staff to fix the application. They shouldn't be permitted to fix the application. They submitted an application, it was deemed complete, it is inadequate, it is illegal, and it must and should be rejected on the basis in which it was submitted, and not create a process where we're going to get a new application with more information that we will be told we have a few days to evaluate before a hearing and find ourselves behind the 8 ball again. This will never end. And we have rights. We have rights under the city ordinance, we have rights under the state constitution, we have rights under the federal constitution. We have a right to be heard and an opportunity to oppose this. And we can't do that if this is going to be a moving target that is never fixed. And we're continually coming back and saying, well, now they've made this argument, now they've made that argument. They're going to try and patch this thing up in some way so that it will hopefully pass muster. It's never going to pass muster because it violates the city ordinance. We need to get on with it. And that's what our lawyer should help us do. Bring this to a prompt conclusion.
Okay, so you're in support of the legal services agreement with Telecom Law?
Indeed, I am.
Good, that's the item.
Thank you.
Lorianne Sims? Did she leave? Wayne Maynard?
Wayne Maynard. I live on Gridley Road, and I support the proposal to hire the specialty attorney. I'm particularly was pleased to hear that he has a technical background also, can be used to evaluate the information that AT&T is submitting and be able to, to review it under a technical matter. It's really good. During my research on the cell tower, I discovered a community in Arizona called Paradise Valley, and they developed what was called a distributed antenna system. And I hope that perhaps the council can talk to this attorney and this specialist in telecom and get more information about it, because to me, it seems like a way that might solve a problem. And basically the concept of a distributed antenna system is, instead of having a few of these mega cell sites, you have a multiple micro cell sites that are throughout the community. The pictures I saw was just a single pole antenna, like 4 feet high, installed on a light standard. And it appears to me that the process is the city basically creates a franchise, brings a company in to build the system out, and then has an ordinance that requires any cell carriers have to use the city's system. The benefit to that is it now gives the city complete control over where they're installed, how they're aesthetically provided. So hopefully you can, when you meet with him, you can ask him about this and if this would be an appropriate avenue to research for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Raymond Sims, did they leave?
Yeah, they left.
Bill Wyrick?
Bill Warwick, 607 North Branch. I want to strongly urge that the stipulation be part of the motion approving this contract regarding the direct communication and accountability to the council. I think that's extremely important because we have to learn from history. History tells us that we had a problem with staff to some extent communicating about a completeness of application that, to use Mr. Fletcher's language, did not strengthen our administrative process position with respect to the city's interests. And so I think it's not so much a matter of who's wrong or who's right at this point, because it's already happened. The question is how to make sure council and staff are working on the same page very closely together, and that would be the way to ensure that. I think that's extremely important. The stakes are high, and I want to mention one thing I haven't heard tonight, and maybe it's been spoken of at another time. Once a tower is in place, the ability to keep more antennas on that tower is almost lost. That the ability for the local jurisdiction to stop further antennas is sharply diminished by the co-location statutes, one of them which is California Code 65850.6. A co-location facility shall be a permitted use not subject to a city or county discretionary permit if it satisfies the following requirements, and there are a number of them. In other words, this is the issue here. It's more than just the antennas that are on this application. It's the antennas that will become that this council has much less discretion to deal with than dealing with the location issue right now. And further, I'll close with, I think, an interesting quote from a firm that put out a report dated September 13, Fox Rothschild LLP, attorneys at law. They work for cell phone companies. And they advise cell phone companies what to do about validity challenges and winning validity challenges, which is what we're talking about if the shot clock runs out and AT&T files suit for performance. And they say the case highlights the heavy burden that cell tower companies need to satisfy to be successful in a validity challenge. The case illustrates it is a fatal mistake for a cell tower company to assert a validity challenge unless the cell tower company can establish through site acquisition, due diligence documentation, and expert testimony that there are no properties in the applicable zoning district that are feasible for placement of a cell tower to resolve the gap in coverage. In other words, it's extremely important that the council work with the retained council to talk, strengthen the case, look at alternative sites, use city resources in that analysis to deal with our position on this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. William Ulrich? Number 2, yeah.
William Ulrich, 487 Gridley Road. Regarding this matter, Mr. Clark was quoted in the Ojai Valley News and also quoted Mr. Fletcher recommending Mr. Kramer for these services. But I don't know if anyone has actually gone to Mr. Kramer's website and looked at his the services that are provided by his firm. But before I go to that immediately, Mr. Clark did make some reference to the city of Calabasas, which Mr. Kramer is doing some similar work. Now, the city of Calabasas has 54 cell towers, according to the director of planning. So it seems that Mr. Kramer is assisting them with placement in more cell towers. Among the services of the Kramer firm, and I know that his appointment and contracting is supported by most of the legal talent here, but is cell site, this is the last page of his website. Cell site leasing and lease sales for private and government landlords. Cell site leasing. Selling your cell site, we will help you maximize the deal value. Protecting cell site landlords against unreasonable tenant demands. Some demands from cell site tenants are unreasonable, some are not. We have the experience and technical expertise to know the difference and to tell you that difference. Government wireless zoning regulations, internet domain names. Pending FCC action to restrict local government wireless zoning authority. In short, while it's one of the skill set of most good attorneys to have the capacity to play both sides as necessary. The question is, for Mr. Kramer, before you retain his services, is where has he spent most of his career and that of his firm on which side of this issue? It would appear from my casual investigation that it is the promotion of the installation of cell sites. And lest we get into a situation where there's a certain inevitability that's presented by both Mr. Kramer and Mr. Fletcher and Mr. Clark that, well, gee, it's too far down the way, we really can't defend this. I would proceed with caution and the contracting of Mr. Kramer's services. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all the speaker cards I have. Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the issue of a legal services agreement?
Okay. 47 Taramina Lane. I had my suspicions when he mentioned that he met this fellow at an industry blah, blah, blah convention. And he just verified it. I think you need to do a lot more due diligence and find out what side this guy is on. I don't care what his experience is, but this lawyer right here is on our side. He would do, I think, a far better job if he's on our side. Because, it sounds to me like you're looking at a guy he's not going to help us. He's going to play the legal game, and you're going to end up being convinced, oh, we better not do this, we better go along with it. I can see it happening. It's just written on the wall real clear. I hope you will please do more research before you hire this guy. Please. Unless you really don't care, and you just don't care if we get a cell tower. Because this will be the end of the game. If we get that one cell tower, and it's only a relay tower, we don't need it in this community. And there are alternatives if we have to have it, but et cetera. I mean, even if we put it at an alternative site, like he was saying, it opens up the door to the devil. So I really hope you'll do more research before you hire him. Don't hire him yet. Thank you.
And we had one other person that wished to speak.
Thank you for letting me speak again. Just a few more questions. Given the information we've all been given a few minutes ago, pro and con, hire the attorney or not, and I appreciate your leadership and even in thinking about something along these lines. I think it's a good idea, but I don't want this back and forth about whether or not to hire the attorney. Our clock is still running. when will we get the answer as to when someone is going to direct the planning commission to hear this again, or council hears it again? I mean, a lot of this stuff is over my head, but I can see that the bottom line is a clock is ticking, a decision needs to be made. I depend on you to figure out how soon the decision needs to be made and make it real quick before a 65-foot tower, which would be the tallest structure in our entire valley, is planted in my backyard. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public wish to speak on this item? Okay, I'll bring it back to council.
I had a question for staff. Mr. Fletcher, I don't know how often this happens, I hope not too often, but if you hire an attorney and you're his client and it's found out somehow or other that he is not representing in fact, he is sabotaging the efforts of the client, what would happen to that lawyer?
I mean, that's extremely severe. I mean,
I would think so. Well, this is what was brought up by Mr. Ulrich, that hiring Mr. Kramer would basically be shooting ourselves in the foot. And I just want to hear from lawyers, I guess, what are the consequences of that to a lawyer?
Among nothing else, one of the most fundamental ethical principles we have is to be a zealous advocate for our client's interest.
Absolutely.
That's the lawyer's primary duty.
Any other questions?
I don't have any questions, but I do have a comment, Madam Mayor, that after hearing that Mr. Kramer was a possible candidate to be hired, I did some independent research into Mr. Kramer, and he comes highly recommended. In fact, retired Judge Joe Haddon recently told me that he had contacted Mr. Kramer on behalf of a group of individuals that Michelle Thomas is part of, to see if he could advise them, that group, as to what they could do to help block the installation of the cell tower. And Mr. Kramer indicated to Joe that he only worked for cities, so then he would not entertain working for grassroots efforts such as what's taking place. I have talked to other colleagues of mine about Mr. Kramer. He's highly respected in the area of advising municipalities in the rights and pitfalls and particular areas in which people most hit the nerve of fear of cell towers being installed in their communities. So I have, from the standpoint of any reservations, I have no reservations whatsoever in hiring Mr. Kramer under this contract as far as his legal ability. I think the longer we wait to hire him, the more detriment we are. I think we need to get to the bottom of this and get this matter back before the Planning Commission as quickly as possible.
Any other comments, questions?
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to reiterate also on receiving the first batch of public comment, there was a particular email with suggesting possible cities that have developed strong cell tower ordinance that prohibit. And Calabasas was one of the ones that the public offer that they had. And so I don't know, and I appreciate Mr. Ulrich's comments on being cautious, because we do need to proceed quick and fast, but smart and intelligently. And I think that attaining his services is needed, much needed. And also, it would be interesting to also do some more research and seeing if those cell towers were actually installed before he was hired on Calabasas, because I do think that Mr. Ulrich said his casual investigation. So I think there's overwhelming just support for hiring him, but I do want to at least acknowledge Mr. Ulrich's concern. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions, motions?
Madam Mayor, I'll move that we approve the legal services agreement with Telcom Law Firm with the modification that Mr. Kramer legally reports to the council through its mayor, and that all communications with staff, including Mr. Fletcher, are brought to the attention of the mayor. And I don't know, Mr. Fletcher, how it can be disseminated, because it can't be disseminated except in some sort of a closed session. And I suppose we could call a special meeting for the sole purpose of having a closed session if we needed to. But I do not want a lot of legal decisions to be decided upon without the council knowing about it first.
Understood, and we can do that, and it's obviously very clear that the council needs to be informed, and we can also, Mr. Kramer can produce, we can do as much legal briefing, written legal briefing as necessary to keep the entire council informed, and then also involved in all critical decision points. But I concur, and one of the cornerstones of this is we need to move rapidly and move decisively. No question about it.
Okay. So that's my motion with that proviso that Mr. Kramer report to the council.
I'll second that.
With discussion? When you say report to the mayor, that's great, but you also, when you report directly to the mayor and the rest of the council isn't present, the rest of the council may have questions or may hear something differently or have other information that would not be exchanged with Mr. Kramer if all weren't present. So I would prefer, I think, maybe the smaller matters go directly to the mayor, but I would not object at all to, upon occasion, having special meetings if necessary to have the entire council briefed.
And since we're in discussion, I would prefer that also.
Okay. So would you like it to be every time he's meeting?
We have a motion on the table. Would the maker of the motion be interested in amending the motion, or shall we?
No, I think I said as much as needed to be. I'm going to leave it up to the mayor to procedurally instruct Mr. Kramer whether he's going to provide us with legal briefs, which is not a violation of the Brown Act, I don't believe, and to call a special meeting when the mayor believes that it's essential that the entire council be briefed.
Okay. We have a motion and a second.
Okay.
Roll call?
Madam Mayor, I just would like to have the council acknowledge that they did receive the agreement with the red line version, and that's the one you will be approving this evening. I did
Yes.
email it to you.
That's correct.
So, Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp?
I'm so sorry. Clarification, please. The motion is?
To approve the legal services agreement with Telecom Law Firm not to exceed $20,000 and to direct Attorney Kramer to report to the council through the mayor.
And call special meetings?
No,
That's not part.
that wasn't part of the motion.
Okay. No.
That was sort of an understanding.
No.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes. Okay, we're on item number 3.
Pass to Betsy. Three.
Okay, item number 3 is city council appointments to the Ojai Planning Commission. And the recommendation is to ratify the appointments of Kathleen Nolan, Chester Jagiello. Say that again?
Jagiello. Jagiello.
Jagiello. And Rosalie Zabia to serve a four-year term on the Ojai Planning Commission. City Manager Clark, did you have a comment, or you want to
I-
pass it on to the city clerk?
I don't have a comment, and did you have a comment, Ron? No, I don't think staff has a comment. This is a nomination under our new process by the selection committee, and it's put on the discussion agenda rather than the consent calendar, as you guys directed at one of our previous meetings.
Okay, I have a comment. We interviewed, the subcommittee was myself, Councilmember Clapp, and the Planning Commission Chair, John Merck. We interviewed 7 applicants. We held it here in the council chambers, an informal setting. We had members of the public present. That number fluctuated because we interviewed from like 2 o'clock in the afternoon until past 5. So it was a long time, but an average of about 5 members from the public at all times. Some of there was some overlap with the applicants. I felt that was unavoidable since it was open in public. I mean, if it's open in public, you can't say except.
No, you can't.
So sometimes we had more than one applicant in the room, and that's not
It's awful.
maximum preference for me, but it worked out pretty good because the other applicants actually had questions that were useful and important also. Now we had 3 openings and 7 applicants. We usually don't have quite that many applicants to interview. So it was a little unusual, plus it was the first time we had done this, quote, open in public. Well, it's out here in the council chamber with encouraging the public. So I thought it went rather well. And I'm going to ask that we vote on each recommendation individually. I don't want one motion covering all 3 appointments. I want us to vote on these individually. And the first recommendation of the subcommittee is Kathleen Nolan for a reappointment to the Planning Commission. Kathleen is very well qualified. All of our applicants were very well qualified. She has a BS in horticulture from Cal Poly. She has professional certificate in landscape and architect. She's been a resident of the Valley for 31 years. She's a member of the currently a member of the Planning Commission. She's on the Complete Streets Subcommittee. She helped model the water ordinance. Well, she was on the Model Water Ordinance Subcommittee, and she was co-author for the Community Forest Management Plan for the City of Ojai. I feel she has contributed tremendously to the city, and I'm very glad that she's willing to serve another term.
Madam Mayor, I move that Kathleen Nolan be reappointed to another 4-year term on the Planning Commission.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I said I was going to do a roll call, didn't I? Oh, well, never mind.
Not spending money we don't have.
Okay, our next appointment for recommendation or recommended appointment is Chester
Yellow.
we'll call him Chester J.
He's my neighbor.
Okay, he is a city resident. He's been a resident in Ojai for 15 years. He's studied architecture from at Montana State University. He's been a general contractor in Ojai for 15 years. He's the general manager for Tenpenny Construction, and I think we would be greatly enhanced if we had his services on the Planning Commission.
I agree. I've known him for years. He's well qualified to be on our Planning Commission. He is in construction. We like to have a mix of people on the Planning Commission. And I think he would be a welcome addition.
If I can only learn to pronounce his last name.
Chester J.
Chester J.
Madam Mayor? And also, we have to have a general on the planning commission, and right now we don't.
Ah, perfect.
So he would fill that requirement. Madam Mayor, I would
Made
like
a
to...
motion, right?
I'll
Did
move,
you?
I'll move to approve the nomination of Chester Jagiello to a four-year term of the planning commission.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The third recommendation of the appointment subcommittee is Rosalie Zabia. Zabella? Okay. Rosalia Z. Okay, she is also a city resident. She has a BA in psychology. She's been a resident of the Ojai Valley for 10 years. She is a realtor. She's currently director of the Ojai Valley Board of Realtors. She interviewed very well, and I would also be pleased to have her on the Planning Commission. Any comments? Motions?
I move to appoint Rosalie Sabia to serve a four-year term on the Ojai City Planning Commission.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I forgot to vote myself. Any opposed? All right, moving on. The next item on our agenda, I've lost my agenda. There we go. The next item is the council liaison to the Building Appeals Board, and it's requesting the council to determine or consider determining an appointment of a council liaison to the Building Appeals Board.
Madam Mayor, I'm passing around the schedule right now and the duties of the Building Appeals Board that was requested by council members, or Mayor Pro Tem Smith. It was also emailed to you, but I'm giving you a hard copy.
Thank you.
And Mayor, if I could, I'd just like to add that when we originally created this board, our feeling was that they were going to meet fairly infrequently. But as it turns out, because of the second unit program and things like the fire code amendment, I think actually, at least for the next year, they'll meet fairly frequently. And so this seems to make a lot of sense to have a designated liaison, just like we do for the other commissions.
And Madam Mayor, just for my comments, because there's five of us and there has historically only been four commissions, one quarter each of us has sat out and not been a liaison. I just suggest that this calendar that's been presented in front of us, that where it says sit out, we just add the Buildings Appeals Board to it.
I agree.
Madam Mayor, what time does the Building Appeals Board meet?
So they don't have a set meeting time. They schedule each meeting, or at least so far, they've scheduled each meeting as needed. So,
Has there been a general time that they've met?
well, they generally 6 o'clock on a.
Oh, okay, because I was going to say, if it was during a workday, I don't
No,
think that would
it's
work.
been in the evening.
Okay. I think that's a good idea.
So I'll be glad to, for February and March, be the liaison rather than sitting out.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
All right, well, let's vote on whether or not we desire to appoint a liaison.
No, wait a minute, I'm not up to that yet.
Okay.
Okay. I have yet to see a written copy. I've asked Amber today, where is a written copy of what their duties are? And she did not put it. Is it on here? Oh, you did put it on here. Oh, I just got it this minute. So I'm being asked to make a standing committee with a liaison, and I haven't even read what their duties are, and neither has anybody else. I think this is premature.
I beg to differ with you, Mayor Pro
have read
Tem.
it?
Of course we read it. We read it when we approved the board.
I have no memory of it. You're probably right. But I did not remember reading it, and I wanted to be brought up to date. Does everybody else remember reading it?
I do remember reading it.
Okay, thank you. Not only that, but looking at the minutes of this meeting, it is not at all clear to me if they even know what they're doing. Are they supposed to just be for the second build ordinance, or are they for everything? I mean, their minutes go all over the place.
Thank you. Mayor and members of the council, there's really two functions of this board. One function is to hear appeals of decisions of the building official. So if the building official determines that a certain rule applies and the applicant disagrees, there's a place for that applicant to go. Secondly, they're to advise the city council on proposed amendments to the building code. And so in that capacity, they've spent a lot of time on the guidelines for the second unit program because those are building code related issues. And also you referred the fire attachment L to them because that's a building code issue. So those are the main duties, those two things.
Have we had any cases of a building appeal this whole year? Has there been any case of a applicant who wanted to appeal?
We have not had any appeals since the Building Appeals Board was formed, and frankly, building appeals of building official decisions are fairly rare in most cities.
Exactly. So so I didn't quite get why they have to be meeting every month and have to have a liaison if in fact they're only focusing on the building code. I don't get it. This to me is an example, excessive big government.
Yeah, well, just for informational, I have attended, I think, all of their meetings. I know that, maybe not all of them, because Councilmember Blatz attended, we were both at like the first two meetings, and then I have attended the last couple. I think we should appoint a liaison. We started out with a concept that was requiring a minimum amount of time from that board, but it has expanded. And so because they're willing to take on these expanded projects, if the council decides not to appoint a liaison, I will attend the meetings anyway. But I think it would be a very good idea to rotate through that board to see what they're doing.
Madam Mayor, I've attended part of their meeting last time. My feeling on this is with any commission or any appeals, I think there's always supposed to be some type of relationship. I think that's been a criticism of the council and the commissions or the board, that sometimes we're not interrelated and there's miscommunication. And what I've seen is through all the commissions, they really appreciate when there's a direct liaison from the council there to report. And I think that the appeals board has really gone with this board and really focused on codes. And I think it would be beneficiary for somebody on the council to attend their meetings. So I would be in favor of having a liaison, whether they meet regularly now and infrequently in the future. But I think it's a good standard, it's a good policy call and a protocol to creating a good relationship with our volunteers, basically.
Go ahead.
Another comment. There was a mention of that actually Building Board member Hilgers, and I agree with her. In fact, I remember saying it does not feel that people will come to the city to take advantage of the second dwelling unit program unless it was a requirement for when they sell their house. And I am quoted as saying, I absolutely agree with that. In fact, I mentioned that the motion did not pass to put it into was it the fourth housing cycle? But apparently, I wanted to know if there's an illusion that on the fourth housing element cycle that we did put in a requirement that there is a residential building program that's required. Is it the fifth? It's the fifth. Is that true? Is there a requirement in the not the RENA cycle, but the housing cycle with cycle 4, this requirement was submitted with cycle 4, I'm reading from page I-52. And then it goes on to say, ask staff to provide the recording of the city council discussion where this issue was specifically talked about and where council member Carol Smith made the motion to add the language that it's mandatory. Mr. Daddy wants to be sure that this is not a mandatory requirement as part of RENA. RENA has nothing to do with it. Ms. McLaughlin noted that this is not part of the RENA, but is part of the housing element. Is it a fact? And then it says, will the requirement be included in cycle 5? I'm asking.
In cycle 4, there was a requirement for a report of building records. In cycle 5, we eliminated that, and now we're going through the process of changing our ordinance to eliminate that. So that's something that went on the Planning Commission agenda just at this last meeting, and will come to you at the next meeting.
So you were saying every house that was sold in the city of Ojai, every house that was sold in the city of Ojai while cycle 4 was in place required a building inspector from the city of Ojai to inspect it before it closed escrow? Well, then what does it mean?
So a report of building records is, it's just a list of the things that are in the file as to what permits have been issued to a property. So basically, the requirement that had been put in cycle 4 was that the seller had a responsibility to provide to the buyer the opportunity to get this list of approved permits for the property they were buying. But before we ever implemented that, there was a public hearing with a lot of input saying that in opposition to that requirement, and so the council actually suspended the enforcement of that. And ever since then, we've been going through the various steps that we have to go through to repeal that requirement. And in fact, in the housing element cycle 5, we eliminated that requirement.
Okay, the agenda item is to determine an appointment of a council liaison to the Building Appeals Board.
Well, I'm questioning the validity of even what the work they're doing. I misquoted here. There is absolutely nothing here.
Well, they exist.
Then Chair Wyrick, what does he come up with? Oh, attend the ad hoc sewer connection committee. The sanitary district has a wonderful program in which people who want to connect can basically drag out the payments of $15,000 over, 10 years or something. I think they are turned over backwards to accommodate homeowners. And here we're suggesting that the city needs to spend money on an ad hoc sewer connection subcommittee. I mean, the average commission costs the city $27,000 to $30,000 a year to run. And I don't see where we're getting that kind of value of them unless they do meet on a per required basis. In other words, not monthly standard, but on a as per required for an appeal.
Okay,
or for whatever. I just don't see
I understand that you have some opposition.
I have
a lot of opposition, but the item before us is whether or not to appoint a council liaison to the board.
Fine.
Madam Mayor, I move that we appoint a council liaison to the Building Appeals Board and suggest that it go in the schedule according to who sits out each quarter that rotates through the city council, and that instead of the one sitting out, the individual that is scheduled to sit out would be that liaison.
Second?
Second.
Okay. For discussion, if we place it on the rotation, that would begin in April?
Correct. April? Mm-hmm. I'd say we put it on the rotation beginning January.
January?
No, I mean, exactly what's here. It's just that there hasn't been a liaison for January. The liaison would start in February.
I attended in January, and I'll attend tomorrow night because I didn't know what we would do here.
Yeah. Well, I attended those meetings as the mayor as well.
Would you like to take those?
But I have no problem being the liaison from February and March.
All right, we have a motion and a second. And I'm going to ask for a roll call.
Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
No.
Strobel?
Yes. The next item on our agenda is city council goals.
So, let me make a suggestion. I think that the city council goals is something that we do need to spend a little bit of time on, but I think it's pretty important that we also do the closed session while we have a fresh mind, and I don't see any harm in postponing this to the next meeting and going ahead and doing the closed session.
I agree.
Well, just we can't go into closed session after 10 or 10:30, or is that?
No, I'm just saying that I think we'd have enough time if we wanted to discuss the whole thing now. I just don't think it's essential that we do it, and I think it would be good to have the closed session while our minds are still fresh. You're just a young guy.
Well, I was just really excited about this priority, so I don't know what the council.
I do appreciate that.
I think it's really important for us to set our priorities at the beginning of the year and not wait another. It's already February, so if we're going to postpone it to the end of February, I mean, to me, the year goes by quick. So I don't know what my fellow council members think, but I think we should do it right now.
What does the council think about setting a special workshop to go over the council goals and priorities?
Madam Mayor, I think that would be great because Councilman Lara was not present at our goal-setting session when we did it before, and he's never had the benefit of participating in that. So I think we should have a goal-setting session.
And we can do it right here.
Right.
Yeah, that's what we've done in the past,
Yeah.
in terms of a workshop, and of course, there were more people from the, right, if we do it now, Severo, nobody in the public is here anymore, they've all gone home, so I think we would like to have more of the public here too, so I think that's a darn good
I think we
idea.
should.
Does that work for you, Mr.?
I mean, that works for me. I mean, if we're if we're gonna be reaching out for more public participation, that's great. But I did attend a goal workshop that you did 2 years ago, and I was here last year.
Oh, you sat in on that one?
Yeah, so I
okay.
sat in on that.
Okay.
So I felt like I went through everything, and I'm pretty familiar with what we want to work and how we want to do it. But I mean, if it's the council pleasure to postpone it to a workshop, I do respect that too.
I prefer to have it stand on its own at a special
Mm-hmm.
workshop because my mind is on the cell tower.
I'd agree.
My hand hurts.
And Councilmember Clapp's hand hurts, and we have someone else on the council recuperating. So,
We're old.
and we're old,
We're old, really, really old.
really, really old. So, do you need any kind of motion, Mr. Clark, or just would you schedule a special meeting for us to go over
Why don't I coordinate with you on that, as far as setting the date and time?
Okay. Okay, let's adjourn as the city council and convene as the Ojai Redevelopment Successor Agency. I didn't get all the agencies in there. I just refused to put 2 agencies in there. And we have a consent calendar, items A through C. Do I hear a motion?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the consent calendars, item A through C.
I second.
Roll call?
Blatz?
Yes.
Clapp?
Yes.
Laura?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Strobel?
Yes. We'll adjourn as the Redevelopment Agency Successor Agency and reconvene as the Ojai City Council. Any reports from council members?
There is, actually. Laura, can you reach that on way under? Yes. I attended the VRSD CASA meeting a few few weekends ago. VRSD for the public is the Ventura Regional Sanitary District. And we have a terrific sanitary district. And believe me, if you think about living in a city, what is more important than clean water and good sewers? Cities were uninhabitable before they had such things. The stories of London in the 17th century, unbelievable. So do not underestimate how important those functions are, and we have a terrific district. The other thing I wanted to say is, right now they're trying to basically recycle as much as we can, so the littlest we can possibly have goes into the landfill. So it is really important that you try to use recyclable bags. These things, the polystyrene, do you know that? We just banned it in this city, but these little pebbles, they never go away. And so it's currently that 1/3 of the sea of sand that comes down from the Pacific, from north to east, is made up of these little pebbles. And God knows how much is left to the marine life. So we have gotten rid of that in the city, and hopefully we'll get rid of it even more so. When it comes to using these bags, I spoke with Steve Bennett because I was kind of saying, why isn't our county, the whole highway from 33, doing anything about getting rid of the plastic? And he said to me, well, we're trying to line up our possible interest in that with when the city of Ventura basically goes ahead and bans their plastic bags and stuff. But it wasn't clear to me, because he's a county supervisor, and he'd have to have all, basically a majority of them to do the whole county. So I really would like people who are interested in getting rid of the plastic bags in Highway 33 to call Supervisor Bennett's office and clarify what he plans to do with it, because it was not clear at all to me what he meant. But the more we can get rid of our stream that goes to the landfill, the better off we are, and certainly things that never, ever go away. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I went to the VCTC meeting, and interestingly enough, I had a discussion about trash on 33 right now, which is unbelievable. When you drive up and down the freeway right now, it's just covered with trash. So about a month ago, I mentioned to the Caltrans representative that it was just horrible. So the last meeting, I look at the budget for 2000, or the update on what's going to be done. You know when they're going to clean the trash on Highway 33? 2015. Oh. That's when it's scheduled to be cleaned up. Yeah. So we need to get an Adopt a Highway, somebody, maybe the Ojai Valley Green Coalition, or who knows what, the Boy Scouts crew, some organization in the community that would adopt Highway 33, because it's pretty embarrassing. It's the gateway to our community, and it really looks bad. Check it out next time you drive down there. But 2015, they're scheduled to pick up our trash.
Madam Mayor, I don't know if the fire chief was going to have any comments tonight, but I just want to make a comment that we've been asked to set a time aside for meetings, individual meetings with the chief of council members. But the council has referred the issue of the sprinklers to the building appeals board. And it seems more appropriate if we're going to be asking the appeals board to come back to us with a advisement that it would be better time spent individually or in twos with members of the appeals board than to have it come back to us and spend time with us. Spending time with us, I don't think, accomplishes what needs to be accomplished, and that's for us to be advised by the Building Appeals Board as to what their take on the ordinance is. The ordinance may have some applicability that has to do with policy, which really isn't the appeals board's job. But without having, for them not to see the same things that we've seen, and I understand there's been some issues with them getting Appendix L or F or whatever it was that we looked at. which we sent back to them to look at. They haven't been able to get that yet, and to have the chief not talk to them, but talk to us, I think is counterproductive. So my suggestion would be, prior to talking to us, so that we can get a full assessment back from the appeals board, that he should spend time talking to them.
So I can pass that on to the chief, as I'm
Right,
sure.
and their meeting is scheduled for tomorrow,
So-
6 PM.
Yeah, they do have a meeting tomorrow at 6 PM, and the fire department will be represented. In
you'll be
talking
attending.
to Mr. Wyrick, I don't think they intend to make final action tomorrow. I think they're going to take some preliminary input and then provide an opportunity for additional information.
But I do think we owe it to the fire district to have a final decision, not in the too distant future.
Right, and just to be clear, it's the county fire chief Lorenzen who will be there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
That's fine.
So I'll pass that invitation on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Laura, did you have any comments? I'm just tired of talking. City Manager Clark.
I'll pass.
Nothing new.
Okay. We're getting on board here, I like it. Anyone out there, any of our directors want to speak briefly?
I'll say something briefly in consideration of time. Number one, I wanted to say that we just received a grant from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, and they're going to send a professional, top-rated traffic engineer to come and look at all of the traffic situations within the city with possible outreach to look at even bike and pedestrian stuff. That's an option that we're trying to exercise. So that was good news. We received that grant. Second of all, I wanted to say we just bought a plaque, and this plaque is for the Ojai Civic Association for their generous donation to renovate the fountain. So the fountain was just poured the other day.
Excellent.
And we'll be doing the new tile next week. And so good news is we'll have that. And the last good news is that we'll be buying another plaque like this. They just gave us a letter, the Ohio Civic Association, that they're going to provide up to $95,000 in monies for a shade structure for the Sarzati barbecue. So that's good news as well. So we can combine that with hopefully a CDBG grant that we're working on right now to put shade structures out at the Sarzati barbecue areas. So good news.
Thank you.
Mayor and Council.
Welcome. We haven't seen you for a while.
Well, I've been in the back.
I mean, I've
and
seen you
you've had
back
a
there,
crowded house out here. That's wonderful to see the citizens out. I just wanted to let you know, Chief Lorenzen would like to speak to you all on the policy level, and we are absolutely going to be with your committee on the technical level. So it is really for both. That is an open invitation. It'll stand for you, and then we'll make the same accommodations for the appeals board as well.
And just a brief comment, the Building Appeals Board meetings are televised.
They are, yes.
So it'll be a good way to reach out and explain to the community also.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Madam Mayor, just to reiterate, are they televised? Last time I tried to flip to Channel 10 and I couldn't see it, because I've seen the other commissions being aired live.
Just started recently.
Yeah, we thought we were.
Okay.
The arrangement that you approved for them is a still camera, and so we turn on the still camera, so it should have been on. We thought it was on. So we'll have to check and make sure,
Is
though.
it broadcast live, or is it
I-
recorded?
it's- Maybe Rhonda can,
It's replayed, it's not broadcast
Oh, there we go.
live.
That's not right. Okay.
Any other comments? Anyone from the audience? Okay, then we do have a closed session. I need new glasses. We have a closed session, anticipated litigation pursuant to California Government Code Section 54956.9B2, significant exposure to litigation, one potential case. So we'll be going into closed session,
And Madam Mayor, we may have a report out from that.
and we may have a report.